For 57 nights, the sky rained fire over London. New documentary special event from the makers of World War. 2 in Color and D-Day in Color brings you the story of the Blitz. It's spring 1940. After the disastrous campaign in France and Belgium, the British Expeditionary Force has just escaped the beaches of Dunkirk. More than 330,000 British and Allied soldiers are back on British soil, but they have little to show for it. They're exhausted, hungry, and more often than not, barefoot. Their retreat was one of the greatest disasters in British military history. It was a catastrophe on the scale of the Crimean War. Even worse, it seemed that Hitler had won a victory without firing a single shot across the Channel. Britain was now in a precarious position, isolated from its allies, running out of weapons, ammunition, and men. Worse still, Hitler's armies were advancing through Europe at a terrifying rate. He was about to make good on his promise to invade Great Britain. But why bother attacking the British when they had already surrendered? That was the attitude of many Germans, including the Nazi elite. So with the British apparently beaten before the battle even began, there was only one thing left to do: surrender. But amidst the gloom, a defiant voice rang out, a voice that would become the voice of a nation during its darkest hours. Winston Churchill, who had been appointed Prime Minister less than a month before, declared in the House of Commons, "We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with aircraft in the air. We shall fight with every weapon and with every man. We shall not flag or fail. We shall not weaken or tire. Neither the threats nor the bribes of our enemies will make us swerve from the path of our duty. We shall fight in the end. We shall fight, all of us be victorious. And to those that give aid and comfort to our enemies," he said, "there is in store for them no rest, no peace. It is to them and their friends that I say, beware the wrath of the British people." Not everyone was convinced by Churchill's bravado. In fact, most of the country assumed that the war was lost, and that the only question that needed answering was how soon Germany would take full control. This pessimism was not entirely without foundation. As Hitler prepared his invasion force, the British realized just how vulnerable they were. There was an acute shortage of weapons, ammunition, food, even petrol. What was more, the British were running out of time. If Hitler attacked, they would be caught completely off guard. In these circumstances, it seemed unlikely that the British could muster any significant resistance. And then the first bombs fell. On the night of May 1940, 18 German bombers took off from bases in France. They crossed the Channel in 2 groups and headed for London and other industrial targets. At 10:30 p.m., an air raid siren sounded across the city. The first bombs exploded over the docks in East London and the city. Thick black smoke rose above the skyline as flames lit up the night. People ran for cover as the streets became rivers of fire and debris. One resident recalled the sight. It looked like Rome burning. "I had never seen anything like it before." This initial assault was a reconnaissance mission designed to test the British defenses. Luftwaffe pilots dropped 60 bombs, killing 6 people and injuring another 46. But it was merely the opening act. Over the next 57 nights, 241, 953 bombs would fall on London. Many more fell on other British cities, notably Coventry, Liverpool, Manchester, and Newcastle. During the entire conflict, 3,177 British civilians were killed and more than 80,000 injured. As the first bombs fell that night, the British public understood that their lives had changed forever. No one knew what lay ahead, but it soon became clear that the Germans were planning to bomb every major city in England. The attack on London was simply the beginning. Throughout the Blitz, which lasted from September 1940 to May 1941, people slept in the tube stations. These were deep enough to offer some protection from aerial bombs, but not from the high explosive fragmentation bombs that became the Blitz's trademark. Nevertheless, millions of Londoners slept in the underground throughout the war. Churchill recognized that the constant threat of air raids would cause panic and terror, but he believed that fear itself could be turned into a weapon. Addressing the House of Commons on September 4, 1940, he declared, "We shall go through with our duty whatever happens and turn." The whole of this experience into the defining event of our national history in the way that our fathers did in their day. You ask, what is our policy? I say it is to keep calm and carry on. His stirring words were later immortalized in a famous poster that became synonymous with the British spirit during the war. Keep calm and carry on. During the worst of the Blitz, people were urged to stay indoors and take shelter in air raid shelters. These were flimsy, corrugated iron structures that were often little more than glorified sheds. They provided scant protection from bombs, but people queued up to spend their nights in them rather than face the alternative. If a bomb hit the street where you lived, you could be killed or injured, even if you were at home in bed. To make matters worse, fires caused by bombs or incendiary devices were almost impossible to extinguish once they started because water mains were frequently damaged. And the fire service was stretched to breaking point. There were not enough fire engines to go around. Fire crews spent much of the Blitz dealing with fires that had been smoldering for days. Air raids were announced by the now familiar wail of the air raid sirens. People ran to the shelters, often taking their work with them, so that they could carry on as normal as soon as the danger had passed. In the country, people ran to the countryside, hoping to escape the raids, only to find that trains were packed and tickets were expensive. This led to the curious phenomenon of people paying exorbitant prices for train tickets to nowhere in particular, often sleeping in railway carriages until the all-clear sounded. Much of the bombing was indiscriminate. Entire city blocks were wiped out by bombs that were meant to hit elsewhere. For instance, on the night of December 29, 1940, a single bomb exploded in London's East End, killing 187 people. By May 1941, 43,800,000 Londoners had been made homeless. Many fled to the countryside, swelling the population of small towns and villages by several 100% overnight. Others remained in the city, sleeping in the underground or sheltering with friends and relatives. Many of the bombs that fell on London were high-explosive fragmentation bombs designed to maim as many people as possible. But perhaps even more terrifying were the incendiary bombs that the Luftwaffe dropped over the city. These were designed to start fires that would spread rapidly, consuming whole city blocks. But in the end, the Blitz actually helped to save London. For weeks before the Blitz began, officials had been making preparations to evacuate children from the city. When the bombing started, however, they realized that evacuating the children would also evacuate the parents, who couldn't bear to part with them. Faced with this logistical nightmare, the government decided to cancel the evacuation plans and instead appealed to Londoners to leave the city voluntarily. Almost 250,000 people took the government up on its offer, leaving London by car, train, and bus. On top of this, the Blitz highlighted the need to improve London's air defenses. Up until May 1940, Britain's main concern had been a potential German invasion. Very few people took the threat of air raids seriously, and so little had been done to prepare for them. Consequently, London was caught off guard by the first air raids in May 1940. But after that, things improved dramatically. By the end of the year, more than 1,000 planes had been shot down over London. Of course, the Blitz was about more than just bombs and bullets. It was a war of nerves aimed at breaking the fighting spirit of the British people. The Luftwaffe hoped that after weeks or months of bombing, the people of London would rise up and force the government to sue for peace. But if anything, the Blitz had the opposite effect. The courage and defiance of the British people became a source of national pride. It was a time when people came together and supported each other through the darkest of nights. So join us for the special documentary event, The Blitz, 57 Nights of Bombs, and relive this pivotal moment in history.